Sometimes the people who hurt us the most become the very reason we discover our true strength. What happens when a quiet girl, constantly mocked by the toughest bullies in school, decides she's had enough? What happens when years of silence finally explode into action that leaves everyone stunned? This is the story of Maya Chun, a 16-year-old who spent 3 years being the target of the most feared group in Lincoln High School. They called her names, destroyed her belongings, and made her life a living nightmare. But what they didn't know was that every cruel word, every humiliating moment, was building something inside her that would soon shock the entire school. In a world where being different makes you a target, where showing weakness invites more pain, Maya was about to prove that sometimes the quietest people make the loudest statements. Her response wouldn't involve violence or revenge in the way anyone expected. Instead, it would be so powerful, so unexpected, that it would change not just her life, but the lives of everyone who witnessed it. Get ready for a story that will make you question everything you think you know about strength, courage, and the power of standing up for yourself. Because what Maya did next didn't just silence her bullies. It transformed an entire school and became a lesson that no one would ever forget. This is her story. This is how the girl everyone underestimated became the person everyone admired. Maya Chun had perfected the art of becoming invisible. Every morning at 7:15 a.m., she would slip through the side entrance of Lincoln High School, her black hair covering half her face like a protective curtain. She had learned that if she moved quietly enough, if she kept her eyes down and her shoulders hunched, she could sometimes make it to first period without being noticed by them. The Ravens, as they called themselves, ruled the school with an iron fist. Led by Derek Matthews, a 6-foot-tall senior with arms covered in tattoos and a reputation for sending kids to the hospital, the group had made Maya's life their personal entertainment project for the past 3 years. What had started as casual teasing in her freshman year had evolved into something much darker and more systematic. Derek wasn't alone in his cruelty. His girlfriend, Vanessa Torres, was perhaps even worse. Where Derek used his fists and harsh words, Vanessa used psychological warfare. She was beautiful, popular, and had a gift for finding exactly the right words to cut the deepest. Behind her perfect smile and designer clothes was a calculating mind that seemed to take genuine pleasure in watching Maya suffer. Then, there was Jake Morrison, Derek's best friend since childhood. Jake was the strategist of the group, the one who planned their attacks and made sure they never got caught. He was smart enough to know exactly how far they could push without getting suspended, cruel enough to enjoy every moment of it. The fourth member of their group was Chloe Davis, Vanessa's best friend and willing accomplice. Chloe was the one who spread rumors, who made sure that Maya's humiliation reached every corner of the school. She had a talent for turning other students against Maya, making her feel isolated and alone even in a crowded hallway. Maya's torment had begun innocently enough. On her first day of high school, she had accidentally bumped into Derek in the hallway, causing him to spill his energy drink on his new sneakers. She had apologized profusely, offered to help clean it up, even suggested she could pay for the shoes to be cleaned. But Derek had seen something in her frightened expression, something that triggered his predatory instincts. "Watch where you're going, freak," he had said, loud enough for everyone around him to hear. Maya had mumbled another apology and hurried away, but the damage was done. Derek had marked her as prey, and the Ravens had found their new target. The harassment started small. They would accidentally bump into her in the hallways, causing her to drop her books. They would make comments about her clothes, her hair, her accent when she spoke. Maya's parents had immigrated from Taiwan when she was 10, and while her English was perfect, there were still subtle traces of an accent that the Ravens loved to mock. "Ching Chong, where you from?" Vanessa would sing in a fake accent whenever she saw Maya. The other students would laugh, and Maya would feel her face burn with shame and anger. She wanted to fight back, wanted to tell them exactly what she thought of their ignorance and cruelty, but she was outnumbered and outmatched. As the months passed, the harassment escalated. They would follow her home from school, shouting insults and throwing things at her from their car windows. They would take pictures of her when she wasn't looking and post them online with cruel captions. They hacked into her social media accounts and posted embarrassing fake status updates that made her few friends question whether they wanted to be associated with her. Maya's parents, David and Lin Chun, ran a small Chinese restaurant downtown. They worked 16-hour days, 7 days a week, trying to build a life for their family in America. Maya was their pride and joy, their brilliant daughter who got straight A's and never caused trouble. She couldn't bear to tell them what was happening at school. They had sacrificed so much to give her opportunities, and she felt like admitting she was being bullied would somehow mean she was failing them. So Maya suffered in silence. She learned to eat lunch in empty classrooms or the library, where the ravens were less likely to find her. She discovered which bathrooms were safest, which hallways to avoid between classes. She became an expert at reading the mood of the school, sensing when the ravens were in hunting mode, and adjusting her route accordingly. The worst incident happened during her sophomore year. Maya had been selected to represent the school in a regional academic competition. She was excited, proud, and for the first time in months, she felt like she had something positive to focus on. The competition was in mathematics, her strongest subject, and she had been preparing for weeks. The night before the competition, Maya stayed late at school to use the computer lab for final preparations. She was alone in the building except for a few teachers and the custodial staff. She felt safe, protected by the academic environment she loved so much. But the ravens had been watching. They knew about the competition, knew how much it meant to her. Derek, Vanessa, Jake, and Chloe cornered her in the computer lab at around 8 in the evening. Well, Derek said, leaning against the doorframe with a menacing smile. Look what we have here. The little genius thinks she's better than everyone else. Vanessa sat on the desk next to Maya's computer, her perfectly manicured nails clicking against the keyboard. Go and make us all look bad tomorrow, aren't you, Maya? Go and show everyone how smart you are. Maya's heart pounded in her chest. She was trapped. The nearest teacher was 3 hallways away, and the custodians were on the other side of the building. She looked at her computer screen, where hours of preparation work were displayed, and felt a sinking feeling in her stomach. Please, Maya said quietly, I just want to finish this. The competition is tomorrow, and you need to what? Jake interrupted, walking over to stand behind her chair. You need to make our school look good? You need to prove how special you are. Chloe laughed, a harsh sound that echoed in the empty lab. Special? Look at her, guys. She's shaking like a leaf. Real special. What happened next would haunt Maya for months. Vanessa reached over and deleted Maya's presentation file. Hours of work vanished in seconds. But they weren't done. Derek grabbed Maya's notebook, the one filled with formulas and practice problems, and tore out page after page, letting them fall to the floor like confetti. Oops, he said with mock concern. Looks like you're going to have to start over. Jake picked up Maya's calculator, the expensive graphing calculator her parents had saved for months to buy her, and dropped it on the floor. The screen cracked, and the device broke into pieces. Oh no, Jake said, his voice dripping with false sympathy. How are you going to do math without your little machine? The physical damage was devastating, but it was Vanessa's final words that truly broke something inside Maya. You know what the worst part is? Vanessa said, leaning close to Maya's ear. No one cares about you. No one would even notice if you just disappeared. You're nothing, Maya. You're less than nothing. You're a waste of space that nobody wants around. They left her there in the computer lab, surrounded by torn papers and broken dreams. Maya sat in the silence for what felt like hours, staring at the blank computer screen where her work had been. She missed the competition the next day, telling the teacher she was sick. She never explained what really happened. That night, Maya lay in her bed staring at the ceiling and made a decision. She couldn't tell her parents, couldn't risk getting the school involved in a way that might make things worse. But she also couldn't continue living this way. Something had to change. She began to research. She spent hours online, reading about bullying, about legal rights, about self-defense. She read stories of other students who had been in similar situations, studying their strategies and outcomes. She learned about documentation, about evidence gathering, about the power of social media when used correctly. Maya also began to change herself. She started running every morning before school, building her physical strength and confidence. She signed up for self-defense classes at a local community center, learning not just how to protect herself, but how to project confidence and authority. More importantly, she began to discover talents and interests she had never explored before. She joined the school's debate team, which met during lunch period in a classroom far from the Ravens' usual territory. She discovered she had a gift for public speaking, for constructing logical arguments, for thinking quickly under pressure. She also began volunteering at her parents' restaurant after school, helping with bookkeeping and customer service. This work taught her about business, about managing difficult people, and about the power of maintaining dignity under pressure. The Ravens noticed the changes in Maya, but they misinterpreted them. They saw her increased confidence as defiance that needed to be crushed. They saw her new activities as signs that she thought she was better than them. Their harassment intensified. They began showing up at her parents' restaurant, causing disturbances that hurt business. They would come in groups, order nothing, take up tables during busy periods, and make loud, rude comments designed to embarrass Maya and drive away other customers. Maya's parents finally noticed something was wrong when several regular customers mentioned the disruptive teenagers who seemed to be targeting their daughter. David and Lin Shun were hardworking people who had fled political oppression in their homeland. They understood better than most what it meant to be targeted because you were different. Maya, her father said one evening as they closed a restaurant together, "These kids at school, they're giving you trouble." Maya looked at her father's weathered hands that had worked so hard to build a life for their family, and felt her resolve strengthen. "Yes, Dad, but I'm handling it." Lin Shun, Maya's mother, put a gentle hand on her daughter's shoulder. In Taiwan, we have saying, "The bamboo that bends in the storm survives when the mighty oak falls." But, Maya, sometimes even bamboo must stand firm. That conversation marked a turning point for Maya. She realized that her parents' wisdom and strength had been there all along, waiting for her to claim it. She began to see her situation not as a series of random attacks, but as a systematic campaign of intimidation that could be addressed systematically. Maya began documenting everything. She carried a small digital camera and recorded conversations when possible. She saved screenshots of online harassment. She kept a detailed journal of every incident, including dates, times, locations, and witnesses. She was building a case, though she wasn't yet sure how she would use it. The documentation process also helped Maya understand the pattern of the Ravens' behavior. They were careful, strategic, and they relied on the silence and fear of their victims. They targeted students who seemed isolated, who were unlikely to fight back or report them. They were bullies in the truest sense, but they were also cowards who depended on their reputation for intimidation. This realization gave Maya hope. If their power depended on fear and secrecy, then perhaps there was a way to take that power away. As her junior year began, Maya felt different. She was still the same quiet, studious girl she had always been, but beneath the surface, something fundamental had changed. She had spent 2 years learning, planning, and preparing. She had built strength, gathered evidence, and, most importantly, she had found her voice. The Ravens sensed the change in her, and it made them nervous. Derek, in particular, seemed to feel that his authority was being challenged in some way he couldn't quite identify. Vanessa became more vicious, as if she could sense that her psychological tactics were becoming less effective. Jake and Chloe began to pressure Derek to do something dramatic, something that would remind the entire school why the Ravens were not to be challenged. They could feel their power slipping, though they didn't understand why. Maya continued her routine of invisibility, but now it felt different. She wasn't hiding because she was afraid. She was waiting, watching, and preparing for the right moment to act. She knew that moment was coming soon, and when it arrived, she would be ready. The girl who had once been terrified of walking down the hallway was becoming someone else entirely. She was becoming someone who would not be intimidated, someone who would not be silenced, someone who would turn the tables on her tormentors in a way none of them could imagine. Maya Chan was about to stop being invisible, and when she revealed herself, everyone would see exactly who she had become. Maya's junior year started with an unexpected twist. The Ravens had graduated 2 members the previous spring, and their dynamics had shifted. Derek was more aggressive, as if he felt the need to prove his leadership without the backup he once had. Vanessa had become the unofficial second-in-command, and her psychological games had become more sophisticated and cruel. The first major incident of the school year happened during the second week of classes. Maya had been assigned to work on a group project in her AP history class with 3 other students. Amanda Rogers, a popular cheerleader, Tom Bradley, a quiet kid from the theater department, and Sarah Kim, another academic achiever who, like Maya, preferred to keep a low profile. The project was worth 30% of their grade, and Maya had thrown herself into the research with her usual dedication. She had spent hours in the library and at home compiling information, creating detailed outlines, and preparing presentation materials. For the first time in years, she was excited about working with other students on something meaningful. The group had arranged to meet in the library during lunch to finalize their presentation. Maya arrived early, as she always did, and spread out her research materials on a large table near the back of the library. Amanda arrived next, followed by Tom and Sarah. For a few minutes, everything went smoothly. Maya shared her research, the others contributed their parts, and they began to put together what promised to be an excellent presentation. Then, the Ravens arrived. Derek walked into the library with Vanessa, Jake, and Chloe trailing behind him. The librarian, Mrs. Peterson, was at lunch, and the student aide at the front desk was too far away to hear what was happening at Maya's table. Derek surveyed the scene with the practiced eye of a predator assessing its territory. "Well, look what we have here," Derek said loudly, causing other students in the library to look up from their work. The Reject Squad having a little meeting. Amanda immediately began packing up her materials. She shot Maya an apologetic look, but clearly wasn't willing to risk her own social standing by staying. Tom and Sarah followed suit, leaving Maya alone with her research spread across the table. "Going somewhere?" Vanessa asked the departing students sweetly. "Don't you want to see what your little partner has been working on?" Jake picked up one of Maya's research papers and began reading from it in a mocking voice. The social and economic factors contributing to the decline of the Roman Empire, he read. "Oh, how fascinating. Maya thinks she's a real historian." Chloe laughed and grabbed another paper. "Look at this handwriting. It's so neat and perfect. Maya, do you practice writing like this? Or are you just naturally this boring?" Maya sat frozen in her chair, watching 3 weeks of work being scattered and mocked. She could feel the eyes of other students in the library watching the scene unfold, but none of them moved to help her. She was alone, as she had been so many times before. But something was different this time. As Maya watched Derek rifle through her research notes, making jokes about her pathetic dedication to schoolwork, she felt something cold and calculating settle in her chest. It wasn't fear, and it wasn't sadness. It was anger, but a controlled anger, the kind that thinks and plans rather than simply reacts. "You know what I think?" Derek said, holding up Maya's carefully prepared timeline of Roman historical events. "I think Maya spends so much time with dead people because living people can't stand her." Vanessa picked up Maya's presentation folder and flipped through it with exaggerated interest. "Oh my God, look at this." She even made little charts and graphs. "Maya, honey, you do realize this is high school, not Harvard, right?" The comment about Harvard hit Maya in an unexpected way. Harvard was exactly where she planned to go. She had been working toward that goal since middle school, maintaining a perfect GPA despite everything the Ravens had put her through. Her dream of attending a top university was one of the few things that kept her motivated during the darkest moments of her harassment. Actually, Maya said quietly, speaking for the first time since the Ravens had arrived, I am planning to apply to Harvard. The library fell silent. Derek stared at Maya with surprise and growing anger. No one had expected her to speak up, least of all to make a statement that sounded almost like a challenge. What did you just say? Derek asked, his voice dangerously low. Maya looked up at him, meeting his eyes directly for the first time in 3 years. I said I'm planning to apply to Harvard, and Princeton, and Yale, and I'm going to get in. Vanessa laughed, but there was something forced about it. Oh, that's rich. Maya thinks she's going to Harvard. Maya, sweetie, you can't even handle high school. What makes you think you could survive at a real university? My grades, Maya said simply. My test scores. My extracurricular activities. My volunteer work. My recommendations. Everything that actually matters for college admission. The silence in the library was deafening. Other students had stopped pretending to work and were openly staring at the confrontation. Maya had never stood up to the Ravens before, never challenged them directly. Derek's face was turning red with anger and something that might have been embarrassment. Your grades, Jake said. Try to regain control of the situation. Maya, you're forgetting something important. Colleges don't just look at grades. They look at character. They want to know if you're the kind of person they want representing their school. You're right, Maya said, standing up from her chair. They do look at character. They look for students who work hard, who overcome obstacles, who contribute positively to their communities. They look for students who don't spend their time tearing other people down because they're too insecure about their own abilities. Chloe gasped audibly. Several students had taken out their phones and were recording the confrontation. Maya noticed this and felt a surge of satisfaction. Let them record it. Let everyone see what was really happening here. Derek took a step closer to Maya, using his height advantage to try to intimidate her. You think you're better than us, don't you? You think because you get good grades and spend your time with your little books that you're somehow special. Maya looked up at him calmly. I don't think I'm better than anyone, Derek. I think I'm different from you. I think I choose to spend my time building something positive instead of destroying what other people have built. Building something positive? Vanessa said with a sneer. Maya, you're a nobody. You have no friends, no social life, no impact on anything or anyone. You're invisible. You're right, Maya said, surprising everyone again. I have been invisible, but being invisible has taught me something interesting. It's taught me to watch, to listen, to learn. It's taught me to see how people really behave when they think no one important is watching. She began gathering up her research materials with calm, deliberate movements. And what I've learned is that bullies are actually the most insecure people in any school. They attack others not because they're strong, but because they're weak. They target people who threaten them in some way. Derek's hands clenched into fists. You don't know what you're talking about. Don't I? Maya asked, slipping her papers into her folder. Derek, you've been harassing me for 3 years. At first, I thought it was random, just bad luck that I became your target. But I've had a lot of time to think about it, and I've realized something. She stood up, shouldering her backpack with confident movements. You started targeting me the day I accidentally made you spill your drink. But it wasn't the spill that made you angry. It was my reaction. I offered to pay for your shoes to be cleaned. I apologized multiple times. I showed more maturity and responsibility in that one moment than you've shown in your entire high school career. The library was completely silent now. Even the student aide had abandoned her post to watch the confrontation unfold. And that threatened you, Maya continued. Because deep down, you know that grades and test scores and college applications matter more than your ability to intimidate other students. You know that in a few months, high school will be over, and the real world won't care about how tough you were or how many people you could push around. Vanessa stepped forward, her face flushed with anger. You're going to regret this, Maya. You think standing up to us once makes you brave? You have no idea what we can do to you. Maya smiled, and It was a smile that none of them had ever seen before. It was confident, knowing, and completely unafraid. Actually, I do know what you can do to me. I've been documenting it for 2 years. She pulled out her phone and showed them a folder filled with photos, videos, and screenshots. Every incident, every threat, every time you followed me home or disrupted my parents' business, every cruel comment you've posted online. I have it all. Derek's face went pale. You've been recording us? I've been protecting myself, Maya corrected, and collecting evidence. Did you know that cyberbullying is a crime in this state? Did you know that harassment that interferes with someone's education can result in expulsion? Did you know that targeting someone because of their race or nationality is considered a hate crime? Jake took a step back, his bravado suddenly evaporating. You can't prove anything. Maya laughed, and it was a sound none of them had heard before. It was genuine amusement, as if she found their panic genuinely funny. Jake, you hacked my social media accounts. Do you really think I don't have digital evidence of that? Chloe, you've posted dozens of photos of me with cruel captions. They're all still online. Vanessa, you sent me threatening messages through multiple platforms. Derek, you physically intimidated me in front of dozens of witnesses. She slung her backpack over her shoulder and prepared to leave. The question isn't whether I can prove anything. The question is what I'm going to do with all this evidence. Derek grabbed her arm as she tried to walk past him. You're not going anywhere. We're not done talking. Maya looked down at his hand on her arm, then back up at his face. Actually, we're done talking. And if you don't let go of me right now, you're going to be explaining to the police why you physically assaulted another student in front of 30 witnesses. Derek released her arm immediately, but his face was twisted with rage. This isn't over, Maya. You think you're so smart, but you have no idea what you started. Maya paused at the edge of the table and looked back at all four of them. You're right, Derek. I am smart. Smart enough to know that this conversation is being recorded by at least 6 different people. Smart enough to have spent 2 years preparing for this moment. And smart enough to know that what I've started isn't something you can stop. She walked away from the table with steady, confident steps. Behind her, she could hear the ravens arguing among themselves in harsh whispers, but she didn't look back. She had more important things to do. Maya walked straight to the guidance counselor's office and requested a meeting with Mr. Rodriguez, the school's head counselor. She sat in his office with her folder of evidence and calmly explained everything that had been happening for the past 3 years. She showed him photos, played audio recordings, and presented a detailed timeline of incidents. Mr. Rodriguez listened with growing concern and anger. Not anger at Maya, but anger that a student had been suffering this level of harassment for so long without the school's knowledge. When Maya finished her presentation, he immediately called the principal, the school resource officer, and Maya's parents. Word of Maya's confrontation with the ravens spread through the school like wildfire. By the end of the day, everyone knew that the quiet girl who had been pushed around for years had finally fought back. But what surprised everyone was how she had done it. She hadn't screamed or cried or thrown punches. She had used intelligence, preparation, and calm confidence to completely dismantle her tormentors. The video of the library confrontation went viral within hours. Students who had witnessed the ravens' behavior for years, but had been too afraid to speak up, began coming forward with their own stories. Maya had given them permission to break their silence, and the floodgates opened. Maya's parents arrived at school within an hour of Mr. Rodriguez's call. When they saw the evidence their daughter had compiled, they were simultaneously proud of her strength and devastated that she had suffered so much alone. Lin Shun held her daughter and whispered, "The bamboo that bends has also learned to be strong." That evening, as Maya sat in her room doing homework as if it were any other night, she reflected on what had happened. For 3 years, she had been afraid of the ravens. She had allowed them to make her feel small, worthless, and powerless. But in standing up to them, she had discovered something important. They had never actually been more powerful than her. They had simply been more willing to use cruelty and intimidation. Maya realized that her real strength had never been in her ability to become invisible. Her strength was in her intelligence, her determination, and her refusal to become like them despite everything they had done to her. She had spent 3 years learning and growing while they'd spent those same years stagnating in their roles as school bullies. As she prepared for bed that night, Maya felt something she hadn't experienced in years: excitement about going to school the next day. She was curious to see how the Ravens would react now that their power had been exposed and challenged. She was interested to see how other students would treat her now that she had proven she wouldn't be pushed around anymore. Most importantly, she was eager to see what else she was capable of accomplishing when she stopped hiding and started using her voice. Maya Chun was no longer invisible, and she was just getting started. The next morning, Maya walked through the front entrance of Lincoln High School instead of slipping through the side door. Students stared as she passed, but the stares felt different now. Instead of looking at her with pity or amusement, they looked at her with curiosity and something that might have been respect. The video of her confrontation with the Ravens had been shared hundreds of times overnight. Students who had never spoken to Maya before nodded at her in the hallways. A few even approached her to express their admiration for what she had done. "That was incredible yesterday," said Jessica Martinez, a junior Maya recognized from her chemistry class. "I can't believe you stood up to them like that. I've wanted to do that for years, but I was too scared." Maya was surprised by the attention, but she handled it with the same calm confidence she had shown in the library. She thanked people for their support, but she also made it clear that she wasn't interested in becoming the center of drama or gossip. She had work to do. The Ravens were notably absent from their usual morning gathering spot near the main entrance. Word had spread that all four of them had been called to the principal's office first thing in the morning. Maya had heard from other students that their parents had been contacted and that there was talk of suspensions or even expulsions. Maya's first period was AP English with Mrs. Thompson, one of her favorite teachers. As she entered the classroom, Mrs. Thompson gave her a knowing smile and a small nod. After class, the teacher asked Maya to stay behind for a moment. "I heard about what happened yesterday," Mrs. Thompson said once they were alone. "I want you to know how proud I am of the way you handled yourself. But more than that, I want you to know that you have support here. If you need anything at all, please don't hesitate to ask." Maya felt a warmth in her chest that she hadn't experienced in years. "Thank you, Mrs. Thompson. That means a lot to me." Maya, the teacher, continued, "I've been teaching for 22 years, and I've seen a lot of students deal with difficult situations. What you did yesterday wasn't just brave. It was strategic, thoughtful, and mature. Those are qualities that will serve you well in college and beyond." As Maya left the classroom, she realized that Mrs. Thompson's words had given her something she hadn't expected: validation that her approach had been the right one. She hadn't simply exploded in anger or resorted to the Ravens' tactics. She had used her intelligence and preparation to achieve something meaningful. Second period brought an unexpected development. Amanda Rogers, the cheerleader who had abandoned Maya's group project the day before, approached her in the hallway. "Maya, I owe you an apology," Amanda said, looking genuinely uncomfortable. "What I did yesterday was wrong. I should have stayed and supported you instead of running away like a coward." Maya studied Amanda's face, looking for signs of insincerity or hidden motives. But Amanda seemed genuinely remorseful. "I understand why you left," Maya said finally. "Standing up to them wasn't easy, and I don't expect other people to fight my battles for me. But that's just it," Amanda said urgently. "They weren't just your battles. They've been terrorizing half the school for years, and we've all just sat back and let it happen because we were afraid. What you did yesterday made me realize how cowardly I've been." Amanda paused, gathering her courage for what she wanted to say next. "I want to help. If you're willing to work with me, I want to help you finish that history project. And if there's anything else you need support with, I want to be there." Maya was surprised by the offer, but she also sensed an opportunity. Amanda was popular, well-connected, and respected by both students and teachers. Her support could be valuable in ways that Maya was only beginning to understand. "I like that," Maya said. "Thank you." During lunch period, Maya discovered that the library had become an unofficial gathering place for students who wanted to talk about what had happened. She arrived to find Tom Bradley and Sarah Kim already there, along with several other students she recognized, but had never spoken to. "Maya," Tom called out when he saw her. "We've been waiting for you. We want to help with the history project, and we also want to talk about something bigger." Maya sat down at the table, intrigued. "What do you mean, something bigger?" Sarah opened a notebook filled with handwritten notes. "We've been talking about what happened yesterday, and we realize that you've exposed a problem that's been affecting a lot of students. But now that the Ravens are facing consequences, there's going to be a power vacuum. We want to make sure something positive fills that space. We're thinking about starting a peer support group," Tom explained. "Something that would help students who are dealing with bullying or harassment. We could provide resources, document incidents, and create a safe space for people to get help." Amanda arrived just in time to hear Tom's explanation. "I love this idea, and I think I know how we can make it official. My mom is on the school board, and she's been looking for student-led initiatives to support." Maya listened as the group discussed their ideas, feeling a sense of excitement she hadn't experienced since elementary school. For the first time in years, she was part of something positive, something that could make a real difference in other students' lives. "I think this could work," Maya said, "but we need to be smart about it. We need to have clear goals, proper procedures, and support from the administration. We can't just be vigilantes taking justice into our own hands." Over the next hour, the group outlined a plan for what they decided to call the Student Advocacy Network. They would work with counselors and administrators to identify students who needed support, provide resources for dealing with harassment, and create educational programs to prevent bullying before it started. Maya found herself naturally taking on a leadership role in the discussion. Her experience with documentation and evidence gathering had taught her valuable organizational skills, and her recent confrontation had given her confidence she hadn't known she possessed. As they were finishing their planning session, Mr. Rodriguez appeared in the library doorway. "Maya, can I speak with you for a moment?" Maya followed the counselor to a quiet corner of the library. "I wanted to update you on what's happening with your situation," he said. "All 4 of the students involved have been suspended pending a full investigation. The school board is taking this very seriously, especially given the evidence you provided and the additional testimony we've received from other students." "Additional testimony?" Maya asked. "Your confrontation yesterday opened the floodgates," Mr. Rodriguez explained. "We've had 15 students come forward with their own experiences of harassment by this same group. Some of the incidents they've described are quite serious." Maya felt a mixture of satisfaction and sadness. She was glad that other victims were finally getting their voices heard, but she was saddened to learn how many students have been suffering in silence. "What happens next?" she asked. "There will be a formal hearing next week. You may be asked to present your evidence and testimony. But, Maya, I want you to know that regardless of what disciplinary action is taken, your courage in speaking up has already made a significant difference for this school." That afternoon, Maya's final class was Advanced Placement Psychology with Dr. Kumar. As she entered the classroom, she noticed that several of the Ravens' former followers were avoiding eye contact with her. The social dynamics of the school were already shifting. Dr. Kumar had apparently heard about recent events, because she opened class with a discussion about the psychology of bullying and the bystander effect. She talked about how fear and social pressure often prevent people from intervening when they witness wrongdoing, and how one person's courage to act can inspire others to do the same. "Sometimes," Dr. Kumar said, looking directly at Maya, "it takes one person willing to break the silence to reveal that an emperor has no clothes. When someone challenges a bully's power directly and effectively, it often shows everyone else that the bully was never as powerful as they seemed." After class, Maya walked to her locker to gather her things for the day. She found a note that had been slipped through the vents. Her heart raced for a moment, fearing it might be a threatening message from the Ravens or their supporters. But When she unfolded the paper, she found something entirely different. Maya, the note read, "Thank you for showing us that we don't have to be afraid. You gave me the courage to tell my parents about what's been happening to me." A friend, the note wasn't signed, but Maya folded it carefully and put it in her backpack. It was a reminder that her actions had consequences beyond just her own situation. As she walked toward the school exit, Maya reflected on how dramatically her life had changed in just 24 hours. The girl who had spent 3 years perfecting the art of invisibility was now at the center of a school-wide conversation about bullying and student empowerment. But more importantly, she had discovered something about herself that she hadn't known was there. All those hours of careful observation, all that time spent planning and preparing, all those skills she had developed while trying to survive, they weren't just defensive measures. They were leadership qualities. Maya realized that her experience with the Ravens had given her something valuable, a deep understanding of how power works, how fear operates, and how change happens. She had learned to think strategically, to gather evidence systematically, and to speak truth with conviction. As she walked home that evening, Maya began to understand that what had happened wasn't just about standing up to her bullies. It was about discovering her own voice and learning how to use it effectively. The scared freshman who had apologized for accidentally bumping into Derek Matthews was gone. In her place was someone who understood her own worth and wasn't afraid to defend it. That night, Maya's parents took her out to dinner to celebrate what Lin Shun called our daughter's graduation day. They didn't just mean her academic achievements. They meant her graduation from victim to leader, from silent sufferer to powerful advocate. "We are so proud of you," David Shun said as they sat in their favorite restaurant. "Not just for standing up to those bullies, but for the way you did it. You showed wisdom, courage, and strength. Those are the qualities of a true leader." Maya looked around the restaurant, seeing the other families enjoying their meals, and felt a profound sense of gratitude. She was grateful for her parents' support, for the unexpected allies she had found at school, and for the opportunity to use her experience to help others. But most of all, she was grateful for the discovery that she had always been stronger than she knew. The Ravens had tried to convince her that she was worthless, invisible, and powerless. Instead, they had unknowingly helped her develop the exact qualities she would need to defeat them and create something better in their place. Maya Chan was no longer the girl who hid in empty classrooms during lunch. She was becoming the girl who would make sure no other student had to hide at all. 3 weeks after Maya's confrontation with the Ravens, Lincoln High School had become a completely different place. The formal hearing had resulted in Derek's expulsion and the suspension of the other 3 Ravens for the remainder of the semester. More importantly, Maya's student advocacy network had grown from a small group meeting in the library to an officially recognized organization with 43 members and full support from the administration. Maya found herself in a position she had never imagined. She was becoming one of the most respected students in the school. Teachers sought her input on policies. Students approached her for advice and support. The principal, Dr. Harrison, had even asked her to serve on a district-wide committee examining bullying prevention strategies. But Maya's transformation wasn't just about her new status at school. It was about the way she saw herself and the world around her. The girl who had once spent her energy trying to become invisible now spent her time making sure other students felt seen and heard. The Student Advocacy Network met every Tuesday and Thursday during lunch in the library. Maya had insisted on maintaining the library location, not just because it was where everything had started, but because it represented something important, the place where knowledge and power intersected. On this particular Thursday, Maya was leading a discussion about developing a peer mediation program when she noticed a familiar figure hovering near the entrance to the library. It was Marcus Williams, a freshman who reminded her of herself 3 years earlier. He was small for his age, clearly intelligent, and just as clearly struggling with something. After the meeting ended, Maya approached Marcus. "Hey, I'm Maya. I've seen you around, but I don't think we've been introduced. Marcus looked up at her with a mixture of recognition and nervousness. I know who you are. Everyone knows who you are. Maya sat down next to him, adopting the same calm, non-threatening posture that had become her trademark. What's your name? Marcus Williams. I'm a freshman. How's your first semester going, Marcus? The boy's shoulders sagged. It's been rough. There are these guys, juniors, and they've been giving me a hard time, taking my lunch money, pushing me around, making fun of my clothes. I don't know what to do. Maya felt a familiar anger rise in her chest, but it was different from the helpless rage she had once felt. This anger was focused, purposeful, and accompanied by the knowledge that she could do something about it. Have you talked to anyone about this? Teachers, counselors, your parents? Marcus shook his head. My parents work 2 jobs each. They don't have time to deal with school drama. And I'm afraid if I tell teachers, it'll just make things worse. Maya understood completely. She pulled out her phone and showed Marcus an app that the Student Advocacy Network had developed with help from the computer science teacher. This is something we created for situations exactly like yours. It allows you to report incidents anonymously, upload evidence, and get resources for dealing with harassment. Everything is documented and reviewed by our team and school counselors. Marcus examined the app with interest. This is really cool. You guys made this. We had help from Mr. Peterson in computer science, but yes, we designed it based on our own experiences with bullying. The idea is that no one should have to face this kind of thing alone. Over the next 20 minutes, Maya walked Marcus through the app's features and explained how the Student Advocacy Network operated. She also shared her own story, watching as his expression changed from hopelessness to something approaching optimism. You really think this could help? Marcus asked. I know it can help, Maya replied. But, Marcus, the most important thing is that you believe it can help. These bullies only have power if you give it to them. Once you start documenting their behavior and building a support network, you take that power back. As Marcus left the library with renewed confidence, Maya reflected on how strange and wonderful it felt to be on the giving end of advice and support. For 3 years, she had been the one who needed help, who felt powerless and alone. Now, she was the one other students turned to when they needed guidance. Maya's phone buzzed with a text message from her mother. Harvard admissions counselor called. They want to schedule an interview next month. Your father and I are so proud. Come home soon so we can celebrate. Maya stared at the message for a moment, feeling a surge of excitement and accomplishment. Harvard had been her dream for years, and now it was becoming a real possibility. But more than that, she realized that her experiences with bullying and advocacy work had given her exactly the kind of unique perspective and leadership experience that top universities were looking for. As she gathered her things and prepared to leave school, Maya was approached by Amanda Rogers. Over the past 3 weeks, Amanda had become one of Maya's closest collaborators in the Student Advocacy Network, and their working relationship had evolved into a genuine friendship. Maya, I have some news, Amanda said with excitement in her voice. The school board meeting is next Tuesday, and they want you to present our anti-bullying initiative to the full board. If they approve it, it could be implemented district-wide. Maya felt a thrill of anticipation mixed with nervousness. District-wide? That would mean helping students at all 5 high schools. Exactly, and there's more. The local newspaper wants to do a feature story about what you've accomplished here. They're calling it From Victim to Victory, how one student changed an entire school. Maya winced slightly at the headline. I don't love being called a victim. I prefer to think of it as going from survivor to advocate. Amanda laughed. You know what? I'll suggest that change when I call them back. You're right. That's much better. As the 2 girls walked toward the parking lot together, Maya noticed how different the atmosphere of the school felt now. Students were more relaxed, more friendly with each other. The hallways that had once felt threatening now felt welcoming. Teachers seemed more engaged and positive. The entire culture had shifted. Do you ever think about what would have happened if you hadn't stood up to the Ravens that day? Amanda asked. Maya considered the question seriously. Sometimes, I think I would have eventually done something, but it might have taken longer. The thing is, I had been preparing for that moment for 2 years without really knowing it. All that documentation, all that research, all those self-defense classes, I was building the tools I needed to fight back. But why did you wait so long? You could have stood up to them earlier. I don't think I was ready earlier, Maya replied. I needed time to understand what I was dealing with, to develop strategies, to build my confidence. If I had confronted them as a freshman, I would have just been angry and unprepared. By waiting, I was able to be strategic and effective. As they reached Amanda's car, Maya's phone rang. It was an unknown number, but she decided to answer. Hello, is this Maya-chan? The voice was professional and unfamiliar. Yes, this is Maya. Hi, Maya. This is Jennifer Rodriguez from Channel 7 News. We've heard about the incredible work you're doing at Lincoln High School, and we'd like to feature your story on our evening news program. Would you be interested in participating in an interview? Maya looked at Amanda, who was listening with obvious excitement. Could I call you back? I'd like to discuss this with my parents first. Of course. I'll send you my contact information. Maya, what you've accomplished is truly inspiring. A lot of people could benefit from hearing your story. After Maya hung up, Amanda practically bounced with excitement. This is amazing. You're going to be on TV. Maya felt less certain. I don't know if I want that kind of attention. This was never about becoming famous or getting recognition. It was about solving a problem and helping other students. But that's exactly why you should do it, Amanda argued. Think about all the kids in other schools who are going through what you went through. Think about the parents who don't know how to help their children. Think about the teachers and administrators who want to address bullying but don't know how. Maya realized that Amanda was right. Her story could help people beyond Lincoln High School. If she could use her experience to prevent other students from suffering the way she had, wasn't that worth stepping out of her comfort zone? That evening, Maya sat in her family's restaurant with her parents, discussing the various opportunities and requests that had come her way. The dinner crowd was just beginning to arrive, and Maya helped her parents serve customers between their conversation. I'm proud of what you've accomplished, David Chin said as he prepared orders in the kitchen, but I'm also concerned about all this attention. You're still just a high school student. You need time to focus on your studies and your own future. Lin Chin nodded in agreement. Your father is right to be concerned. But, Maya, you have been given a platform that could help many other young people. In our culture, we believe that when you've been blessed with good fortune, you have a responsibility to share it with others. Maya watched her parents work, thinking about how much they had sacrificed to build a life for their family in America. Their work ethic and dedication had been constant examples throughout her childhood. But, more than that, their quiet dignity in the face of challenges had taught her how to maintain her values under pressure. What do you think I should do? Maya asked. We think you should follow your heart, her mother replied. But we also think you should be strategic. Choose the opportunities that align with your goals and values. Don't just say yes to everything because it's flattering. That night, Maya sat in her room and made a list of her goals and priorities. At the top of the list was getting into college and preparing for her future career. But close behind that was her commitment to the Student Advocacy Network and her desire to help other students who were facing bullying and harassment. She decided to accept the television interview, but only if they would focus on the systemic solutions her group had developed rather than just her personal story. She would present to the school board, but she would insist on bringing representatives from the Student Advocacy Network with her. She would work with the newspaper, but only if they would highlight the collaborative nature of the changes at Lincoln High School. Maya realized that her experience with the Ravens had taught her something crucial about power and influence. The Ravens had used their power to tear people down, to create fear and division. But Maya was learning to use her growing influence to build people up, to create connection and positive change. As she prepared for bed that night, Maya looked at herself in the mirror and saw someone she barely recognized from 3 years earlier. The frightened freshman who had apologized for accidentally bumping into Derek Matthews was gone. In her place was a confident young woman who understood her own worth and wasn't afraid to use her voice to defend others. But the most important change wasn't visible in the mirror. The most important change was in how Maya saw herself. She no longer defined herself by what others thought of her or by the cruelty she had endured. She defined herself by her values, her goals, and her commitment to making the world a little bit better for the people around her. Maya Chun had transformed from a victim to a survivor to a leader, and she was just getting started on what she knew would be a lifetime of advocacy and positive change. The next morning, as Maya walked through the front entrance of Lincoln High School with her head held high and her shoulders back, she noticed Marcus Williams standing a little straighter as he talked to a group of other freshmen. She saw Amanda Rogers organizing a volunteer meeting for the Student Advocacy Network. She saw teachers and students interacting with mutual respect and genuine care. Maya had set out to stop her own harassment, but she had accomplished something much bigger. She had helped create a school culture where bullying was no longer tolerated, where students supported each other, and where everyone understood that their actions had consequences. The girl who had once perfected the art of becoming invisible had learned the far more valuable art of making positive change visible to everyone around her. 6 months later, Maya stood at the podium in the Lincoln High School auditorium, looking out at an audience of students, parents, teachers, and school district officials. The auditorium was packed beyond capacity, with people standing in the aisles and sitting on the floor. She was delivering the keynote address at the first annual Student Leadership and Anti-Bullying Conference, an event that had grown far beyond anyone's expectations. When I was a freshman, Maya began, her voice clear and confident, I thought strength meant being invisible. I thought survival meant staying silent. I thought success meant enduring pain without complaint. I was wrong about all of those things. The audience listened with rapt attention as Maya told her story, but this wasn't the same story she had been telling for months. This version was different because it focused not on what had been done to her, but on what she had learned from those experiences and how those lessons had shaped her approach to leadership and advocacy. The Student Advocacy Network now operates in 12 school districts across 3 states, Maya continued. We've helped over 200 students document harassment, find support, and reclaim their power. But the most important thing we've learned is that bullying isn't really about individual bad actors. It's about systems and cultures that allow cruelty to flourish. In the audience, Maya could see familiar faces that told the story of how much had changed. Marcus Williams, now a confident sophomore, sat in the front row with other student leaders. Amanda Rogers was in the second row with her parents, beaming with pride. Mrs. Thompson and other supportive teachers filled an entire section. Maya's parents sat near the back, their faces glowing with quiet satisfaction. But, perhaps most surprisingly, in the very back of the auditorium, Maya spotted a face she hadn't expected to see: Vanessa Torres. The former Raven was now a freshman at the local community college, and, according to Amanda, she had been quietly volunteering with anti-bullying programs for the past few months. Maya had learned through the grapevine that all 4 Ravens had struggled after their suspensions and expulsions. Derek had been arrested twice for fighting and was currently in juvenile detention. Jake had dropped out of school entirely. Chloe had transferred to another district and was reportedly doing better with counseling and support. But Vanessa had surprised everyone by choosing a different path. She had reached out to Maya through a mutual friend, asking if she could volunteer with the Student Advocacy Network. Maya had been skeptical at first, but after several long conversations, she had agreed to let Vanessa participate in their training programs. "I want to make amends," Vanessa had said during their first meeting. "I can't undo what I did to you and other students, but maybe I can prevent other kids from making the same mistakes I made." Maya had accepted Vanessa's offer to volunteer, not because she fully trusted her former tormentor, but because she believed in the power of redemption and change. If Vanessa was genuinely committed to helping instead of hurting, that could only strengthen their mission. Now, as Maya concluded her keynote speech, she made eye contact with Vanessa and gave her a small nod of acknowledgement. It was a gesture that said, "We all have the capacity to grow, to change, to choose differently." "The most important lesson I've learned," Maya said, wrapping up her speech, "is that real strength isn't about being tough enough to endure cruelty. Real strength is about being brave enough to create kindness. Real power isn't about making others afraid of you. Real power is about empowering others to reach their full potential." The audience erupted in applause as Maya left the podium. She was immediately surrounded by students, parents, and educators who wanted to thank her, ask questions, or share their own stories. Maya handled each interaction with the same calm confidence and genuine interest that had become her trademark. After the conference ended, Maya found herself in the school parking lot with Amanda, Marcus, and several other members of the Student Advocacy Network leadership team. They were loading boxes of materials into cars and debriefing about the day's events. "I can't believe how big this has gotten," Marcus said, carrying a box of promotional materials to Amanda's car. "Do you remember when we were just 5 people meeting in the library?" Amanda laughed. "Maya, do you ever think about what you'll do after graduation? I mean, you've basically started a movement here." Maya had been thinking about that question a lot lately. Her acceptance to Harvard had been confirmed months earlier, and she would be starting in the fall with plans to study psychology and education. But she had also been approached by several nonprofit organizations about continuing her advocacy work on a national level. "I think what we've built here is bigger than any one person," Maya replied. "The Student Advocacy Network will continue with new leadership. The programs we've developed are being adopted by schools across the country. The important thing is that the work continues, whether I'm directly involved or not." As they finished loading the cars, Maya's phone buzzed with a text message that made her smile. It was from a student at a high school in Ohio. "Maya, I saw your interview on YouTube, and it inspired me to start documenting the harassment I've been facing. Today I reported my bullies and got help from my school counselor. Thank you for showing me that I don't have to suffer in silence." Messages like this had been arriving regularly for months. Maya had heard from students as far away as Australia and as close as the next town over. Each message reminded her that her decision to stand up to the Ravens had rippled far beyond Lincoln High School. That evening, Maya sat in her family's restaurant, which had become a regular meeting place for Student Advocacy Network planning sessions. The restaurant was closed to customers, but the tables were filled with laptops, planning documents, and passionate young people working to make their schools safer and more inclusive. Maya's parents moved through the space, serving tea and snacks to the volunteers. David and Lin Shun had become unofficial mentors to many of the student activists, offering wisdom from their own experiences with overcoming adversity and building something positive from difficult circumstances. "Maya," her father said, sitting down next to her during a break in the planning session, "your mother and I've been talking about something we want to share with you." Maya looked up from her laptop, curious about the serious tone in her father's voice. "We came to America with very little," David continued. "We worked hard, saved money, and built this restaurant because we wanted to give you opportunities we never had. We always hoped you would be successful, but we never imagined you would use your success to help so many other people." Lin Shun joined them at the table, placing a gentle hand on Maya's shoulder. "In our culture, we have a saying, when you plant a tree, you may not enjoy its shade, but others will. Maya, you have planted a forest." Maya felt tears welling up in her eyes, not from sadness, but from gratitude and overwhelming love for her parents. "I learned how to do all of this by watching you," she said. "You taught me that hard work pays off, that treating people with dignity matters, and that sometimes you have to be patient for change to happen." As the evening continued, Maya reflected on the journey that had brought her to this point. 3.5 years earlier, She had been a terrified freshman who thought her only choice was to endure cruelty in silence. Now she was a nationally recognized advocate whose work was changing policies and cultures in schools across the country. But the transformation that mattered most to Maya wasn't the external recognition or success. It was the internal change from victim to survivor to leader. She had learned that her worth wasn't determined by how others treated her, but by how she chose to treat others. She had discovered that her voice, when used with purpose and strategy, could create positive change on a scale she had never imagined. Maya's phone rang, interrupting her reflections. It was Dr. Martinez, the professor from Harvard who would be overseeing her freshman year research project. "Maya, I hope I'm not calling too late," Dr. Martinez said. "I wanted to discuss your research proposal about peer advocacy programs in educational settings. The department is very excited about your work, and we'd like to fast-track your project for potential publication." As Maya talked with the professor about her research plans, she realized that her experience at Lincoln High School wasn't ending. It was evolving. She would be taking everything she had learned about bullying, advocacy, and systemic change to the university level, where she could study these issues more deeply and develop even more effective solutions. After ending the call, Maya looked around the restaurant at her team of dedicated volunteers. Marcus was working on a presentation for middle school students. Amanda was reviewing applications from schools that wanted to implement their programs. Other team members were developing new resources, planning outreach events, and providing support to students who needed help. Maya realized that what they had created together was exactly what she had needed during her darkest days as a freshman. A community of people who refused to accept cruelty as normal, who believed every student deserved to feel safe and valued, and who were willing to work together to make that vision a reality. As the evening wound down and the volunteers began to pack up their materials, Maya took a moment to walk through the empty dining room of her parents' restaurant. This space had been a refuge for her during the worst periods of harassment, a place where she was valued and loved unconditionally. Now it had become a launching pad for a movement that was touching lives across the country. Maya stopped in front of the large mirror near the restaurant's entrance and looked at her reflection. The girl staring back at her was confident, purposeful, and unafraid. She was someone who had learned to use her intelligence and compassion not just to succeed, but to lift others up as she climbed. The scared freshman who had apologized for bumping into Derek Matthews was part of Maya's history now, but not a part she was ashamed of. That frightened girl had shown remarkable resilience in surviving 3 years of systematic harassment. She had quietly developed the skills and knowledge that would eventually allow her to fight back effectively. She had maintained her values and her humanity even when others tried to destroy them. Maya understood now that every phase of her journey had been necessary. The fear had taught her empathy for other victims. The documentation process had taught her the importance of evidence and strategy. The months of careful planning had taught her patience and preparation. The confrontation with the Ravens had taught her the power of speaking truth with confidence. As she prepared to leave the restaurant that night, Maya's phone buzzed one more time. It was another message from a student, this one from a girl in California. "Maya, I've been following your work for months, and today I finally found the courage to start a student advocacy network at my school. We had our first meeting this afternoon, and 12 students showed up. Thank you for showing us that we don't have to accept bullying as normal." Maya smiled as she read the message, understanding that this was what real success looked like. It wasn't about defeating her enemies or getting revenge on the people who had hurt her. It was about creating something so positive and powerful that it would continue growing and helping others long after she had moved on to new challenges. Maya Chin had started her high school career as a victim of bullying. She was ending it as a nationally recognized leader in anti-bullying advocacy. But the transformation that mattered most was simpler and more profound. She had learned to see herself not as someone things happened to, but as someone who made things happen. As she turned off the lights in the restaurant and locked the door behind her, Maya looked forward to her future with excitement and confidence. She was heading to Harvard in the fall, but she was taking with her something more valuable than any college degree: the knowledge that she had the power to create positive change in the world and the responsibility to use that power wisely. The girl who had once perfected the art of becoming invisible had become someone impossible to ignore. But more importantly, she had become someone who used her visibility to make sure that no other student would have to suffer in silence the way she once had. Maya Chen's story wasn't ending with high school graduation. It was just beginning.